Welcome back to Midlife by Design. And if you're new here, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Lori Lisai, human design teacher and midlife coach, here to help you use human design to shed the shoulds and be who you came here to be. Today is the first in a short series where I'm diving into the emotional solar plexus, because so many of us make decisions in the heat of emotion when we really need to wait. And I'm not saying get all logical, but rather work to build your awareness of your emotional energy from a human design lens. And if you want to start experimenting with human design with other midlife mavens, I invite you to get on my Midlife Magic membership waitlist. More details are coming soon, but this idea of a membership has been on my heart for so long, and I am just feeling like it's time to do something about it. So I'm going to do a beta launch this summer, and if you are a pod listener, I think you are the perfect beauty to join me. So I'm going to drop the link in the show notes. And in terms of this episode, if you have a midlife bestie who is struggling with her emotions, hello perimenopause, please share this episode and make sure that you are following the show so that the rest of the series will be delivered right to you. All right, let's dive in. Welcome back to Midlife by Design. I got to be honest with you. I have re-recorded the start to this podcast multiple times. It's like my brain is just not functioning this morning. So listen, I want to talk to you today about emotions and how beautiful they can be, how if we learn to embrace them and their temporary nature in midlife, that they can provide the guidance and the full life experience that we hope for them to do, and that we need not make them mean so much about who we are in this midlife. I've been thinking a lot lately about midlife as this decade-long crossroads where it doesn't just feel like you're at a crossroads at one point, but you have these daily questions that pop up. Did I make the right career choice? Do I still like my career? Do I still like my partner? Do I want to stay married? Do I want to live in this place? Do I like where I live? Etc., etc. We have these feelings about what's happening around us. And listen, that hormonal chaos that we are experiencing, it just adds fuel to the fire. It's like giving the flames more and more oxygen to have us feeling. And when we feel, we tend to feel strongly. We feel at the very depths, or we feel at the very heights. One of the things that I'm learning is not to identify so strongly with my emotions at any given time. So, talking about the emotional solar plexus, if you don't have your body graph chart, go onto my website, lorilisai.com, LORILIS as in Sam, AI.com, and go to get your chart, and you can download your chart and look at the triangle that is on the lower right-hand corner facing inward toward the sacral, which is the square that has two triangles on either side of it. The emotional solar plexus is on the right-hand side. So if you have a defined emotional solar plexus, that is automatically going to be your authority, which is your decision-making capacity. And oftentimes, if you have a defined emotional solar plexus, you may have been called too much, or too sensitive, or too emotional. These are all things that you may have heard over the years. And it's because you are here to have a very emotional experience. You have an emotional wave, and sometimes you have more than one emotional wave. And your emotions are meant to go up and down. They're meant to have those ebbs and flows, just like a wave. And your design is asking you to simply feel them. Have you ever tried to stop a wave? It's impossible, right? It flows right over you whether you want to or not. And so if you think of your emotions as waves like that, then the more you can accept that you are just here to feel, if you are a defined emotional, the easier it will be on you. And keep in mind that those midlife hormonal shifts are definitely going to amplify this. When you have an emotional solar plexus and you don't wait through the wave for clarity to hit, for you to be more neutral, then what happens is you create chaos and confusion, and it just doesn't serve you. So, learning that you are designed to take your time when you're making decisions, and that your responsibility having a defined emotional solar plexus is to feel through all parts of your wave is crucial. So it's crucial for you to build awareness of that wave and then notice when you're in a high or a low so that you can understand, like, okay, actually I'm in my low right now. I really shouldn't be making a call on this decision. Let me wait. As an emotional being with a defined emotional solar plexus, sorry, I didn't mention this earlier, but that means that that triangle is going to be colored in. That is definition. If it's not colored in, if it's white, then that means that you're either undefined or open, which we'll get to in just a moment. As a defined emotional, you broadcast emotions to those around you. So it's important to pay attention to what you're broadcasting. And I'm thinking of last night, I was prepping for this event that we were hosting at our house. And it was super fun and I was super excited, but I was a little stressed. It was like a lot of people that were going to be at our house. And I was excited, but I noticed that I was responding every time there was a question like, oh, should we do this or should we do that from the people that were helping me? My first response was always like, no, let's do it this way. No, let's do it that way. And I've noticed myself getting steeped in this negativity. And I was like, okay, I need to hit the timeout, hit the like de-stress button, take a couple of deep breaths here and reframe and be more open. They're just trying to help. And this is a fun event. And so awareness is always what it comes back to. And knowing that I, as an emotionally defined person, am broadcasting those emotions out to other people, it's so important for me to be aware of what emotions I am broadcasting. And listen, this is tricky because if your channel is a lighter color. So if you're looking at my human design chart, it'll be a gold color. If it's a gold color, then that means that you are unconsciously defined. So if your emotional wave is unconscious, it means a couple of things. It means that more than likely it's going to be a little harder for you to see or to understand and to be aware exactly of what you're feeling or where you are on your emotional wave. And from experience with my experiment, what I would suggest is, again, bringing your awareness to your thoughts and then dropping into your body and really tapping into how is my body feeling? And the thing about an emotional wave is oftentimes when we think of our emotions, we think of things like, well, if it's low, that means I'm sad. And if it's high, that means I'm happy. We generalize these ideas. And that's not actually, I mean, it could be how the emotional wave plays out, but it's definitely more nuanced than that. First of all, the emotional solar plexus is a motor. And the thing is, when you are in an emotional low in your body, you might be feeling tired. because it is a motor. So you might find that you're lacking in energy. You're feeling more like you just don't have that creativity. Because as an emotional, your creativity is partially, at least, driven by your emotional solar plexus. So, understanding how you feel and being able to feel into your body how you're feeling, I'm going to give you some words from a beautiful little resource that I found recently called the Emotion Sensation Wheel. And it's this wheel that maps out all of the emotions and how you might be feeling in your body according to the emotion itself. So, for example, if you're feeling that sadness, like we talked about, that sad versus happy, it might feel like weakness or heaviness or slow or hollow. So, these are some of the things that you may find yourself doing in your body. And if you are unconsciously emotionally defined, this will help you to start to identify, like, oh, okay, this is what it feels like in my body. Therefore, I must be in the low of my wave right now. And then you can start to see patterns. And when you know that your body is functioning in patterns, it's just so powerful and empowering to know that about yourself. So, if you are consciously defined, which would mean that on my chart, the channel that defines the solar plexus is that teal color, then that means you're probably going to be a little bit more in touch with your emotions. It's going to be a little bit clearer to you what you're feeling when you're feeling it. And that's just helpful, honestly. But I will say, just as a reminder here, that we all came in with the design that we have on purpose. Nothing is a mistake. So if you came here unconsciously emotionally defined, you did that on purpose. That's part of your soul assignment. So rest assured that part of what you're here to do is to build that awareness of understanding what is your body telling you in terms of how it's feeling. What is the information coming through in terms of the little actions it takes and feelings that it feels within the physical body? So again, your solar plexus is a motor center. And so because your wave moves up and down, that means that your energy will probably have ebbs and flows, right? And you're also going to have surges with your creativity. And then you need that rest time. So similar to the way that a manifestor aura works with its creative surges and then need for rest, this is similar. It's not the same, but similar in that with emotional waves, you'll have surges of creativity and then the rest when you are in your low. So if you have an undefined emotional solar plexus, this means that you are going to be a sieve when you have an undefined solar plexus. You really have to get good at clearing others' energy because you are an empath. You take in and amplify other people's emotional energy. Oftentimes, you can fall into people pleasing and wanting to avoid confrontation, wanting to avoid disappointing people. And some people might consider you more emotional than defined emotionals because you are taking on and amplifying those emotions. So it's interesting because you may have been called too emotional as well. Uh, so the trick for you is being the strainer or the sieve, not the sponge, and remembering that it's not your job to manage anyone else's emotions. It's so important to give yourself space from the source of strong emotions. So thinking about some energy clearing practices on the daily. seriously, during midlife, emotions are high. And if you are around anybody else and you're in midlife, remember, 50% of the population is defined emotionally, and then 50% is not. So, more likely than not, that you're going to be in contact with somebody who is emotionally defined. So, having daily energy clearing practices can be so supportive for you. This can be simple, like dry brushing. It can be literally brushing energy off of your body with your hands. It can be shaking it off. It can be going outside. Removing yourself from other people's auras is the trick. If you can get yourself out of the space where you're being influenced by those other emotions, just get yourself alone, then you're going to be able to clear out that energy. And then if you have a completely open emotional solar plexus, that means none of the gates are colored in. None of the numbers within that triangle shape are colored in. That means you're totally open. So what can happen with totally open solar plexus is that you can feel totally overwhelmed by other people's emotions. And sometimes strong emotions or emotions in general can be kind of confusing to you even, or you feel like you can't quite identify like how people are feeling. It just feels weird, and you may feel like there's something wrong with you emotionally because you have kind of a hard time understanding that. And in reality, you actually have the ability to understand the emotional waves purely without any conditions of yours getting in the way, which is such a beautiful gift, right? To be able to reflect to others how they are feeling in the moment, but you're not mired in it as you might be if you are an emotional. So, if you would love some support with this, then book a midlife mapping call with me and let's dive into your emotional solar plexus. How has it been running your life? How can you take back control? How can you start leveraging your emotions to create the kind of life that you desire without making it means so much about who you are as a human being? So, I have so much to say about the emotional waves and the emotional solar plexus in general. So, next week, we're going to talk about the 4 emotional wave types. And there are specific kinds, like they're divided into different categories which function differently. And then we're going to look specifically at each wave and talk a little bit about how does it experience emotion, because they're all a little bit different. And again, you may have more than one wave, you may have just one wave, and understanding that in midlife, whatever kind of situation you have going on in your emotional solar plexus is going to be amplified simply because of the hormonal havoc happening, is so important for you to understand, because becoming aware is the first step to making meaningful change and having a good time in life instead of constantly beating yourself up about how you're too emotional or feeling so crazy or feeling out of control or you're crying at the Kleenex commercial or whatever. And instead start to see that your emotions are actually the root of your creativity and a place for you to simply feel, which if we didn't come here in this human suit to do, then what are we really here for? All right, until next time, beauties. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Midlife by Design. I hope that it inspired you to start getting curious about your mood swings in this midlife phase, which, with the hormone havoc that we experience as women for roughly a decade, they're bound to happen. And so understanding whether you are emotionally defined or undefined can be such a game changer. And what about the people around you? And how might you have more empathy for yourself and for them, knowing what you know about how the solar plexus functions now? Tune in next week where I dive into the separate emotional waves, and I'm going to explore how they function and also how to set yourself up for success to ride them like a surfer instead of letting them school you like a newbie. And as always, I'm sending you the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and the clarity to be who you came here to be.